Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Shadowlands Alpha. This is the Feral Druid. Is the kitty cat still for Fite? This is going to be a bit of a discussion-ish video because nothing in your rotation has really changed. We'll definitely whack the dummies a little bit, show off a couple of different things, but another long discussionary testing segment today. Didn't have a whole lot to dig into, but if you're interested in the, at least didn't have a lot to dig into to clarify. That was like tooltip based because nothing has really changed. A couple of different things, but compared to working out math-free clips in the previous video, right, for Balanced Druid, there was little things that I had to figure out and get told, and we had to, ask around. But the overall, if you want the entire VOD, channel guide, link down below. Also, the actual VOD of the both dungeon run that I did with Mr. GM and Luxtos and Mr. GM's friend, and then a tester from my community in the description box down below, or on the channel guide, which leads me, of course, to this video today is brought to you by my YouTube channel, where the archive stuff goes up, where these videos are we are watching right now, and some of you may not even be subscribed to the channel currently that are partaking in the Talking Head podcast-esque discussion, update, first impressions, catch-up, etc. So if you would like to stay up to date for this, for the podcast I do, for the side content, then consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, which you're either on right now, or I don't know how you're watching this otherwise, but the link is down below to subscribe, or of course, anywhere else it's on places and things. So please feel free if you would like to support what I do here with that free sub button on YouTube. So, Feral Druid. We're going to let the kitty cat in the background here spin around a little bit. This add-on is called Narcissus, Narcissus. It's way more than just this character panel. It's a great add-on. I've been talking to the developer about certain things. I'm sure it'll keep coming up in questions, but it's a great little add-on for both this and a couple other bits. But first off, I want to be very clear. If you're listening so far, only 2 minutes into the video, I'm not good at combo point classes. I made this very clear on the stream in the past. I just don't play them. So I try to learn and sight read and figure things out and just understand and get that feel for what's going on. But I mess things up in the dungeon and it's probably super cringe. Whatever, okay? A lot of it comes down to feeling what the moment-to-moment gameplay would be like, the decisions I'm messing up on. And you out there that have been playing Feral Druid for 10 plus years, you'll always play this class better than me. I'm not trying to be better than you at this. I never will be. Guilty and Zan and a bunch of other of the Dreamgrove Discord Feral community were in the stream today talking to me about this kind of stuff. We're showing information, going back and forth about the pain points. Specifically down below as well listed, I will leave a link to Size or Cybears, his giant post that he made about the state of Feral Druid, right? That'll be down below. Yeah, Cybearslat's his giant post, as well as the official feedback post that you guys all put together that is on the forums from the Feral Discord community in the Dreamgrove. We read through all of Cy's post, outside of like maybe one topic, which we just talked a lot about. And we went through the Feral Druid post as well, and the feedback post that Blizzard already posted about Blood Talons. So I'm going to get right into this off the bat. Those are my notes. Let me actually fix this region so all that stuff doesn't pop up on screen. Where is it? Right there. There we go. Is that my big sticking points here? Then we got the pain points right off the bat. If you don't know, I'm also not going to go over every single thing in these videos. I'm going to assume you've either read the Wowhead post, kept up in the Discords, or read the MMO Champion post. You've seen the changes baseline, and of course things are still in flux and everything is subject to change. But the big things here. New Blood Talons, which I'm going to mark as pretty okay. And again, in a little bit, we'll jump on the target dummies. I'll do my bad way of kind of weaving it around. It'll be slow because I'm trying to like illustrate the points here. But it's pretty okay. And the Blizzard Blue post said they're looking at potentially more interactions with what you use it on, not just rip. Because the old Blood Talons, when you use your regrowth after your 5-point finisher, yada yada, you could use it on anything. You could get your rip and your rake in there. Or if you're coming out of stealth, maybe you're trying to finish someone off and you had the Blood Talons from the previous encounter in PvP, then you want to get that super juicy rake or that big crit chance extra damage shred to like knock a healer down a peg or whatever. Like, you had choices. Now it's just 3 abilities in any order equals big rip. Sure. But it might need something else, which again we'll show in a moment. The other big pain point was Sabertooth. My note here is please yeet and no repeat. But Sabertooth works if it was the old Execute version. It gives you that choice, and for 20% of a boss fight when their rotation changes slightly, as a choice and a talent, isn't as much as just removing a part of your entire rotation forever, which is what Blood Talons currently does. And that being pain pointed with the new with Sabertooth and Blood Talons together, that's where you just forget about Rip for like the entire fight, depending on what kind of encounter it is. Obviously, with multiple targets, things still go back to kind of normal, but not an ideal design decision. Taking something away from your rotations and spec identity is no good. You want to add or modify, never remove. Outside of, like, if it's not removed if it's an execute window bonus, it's like an extra thing you pay attention to, right? And you get to slam more bites only for 20% of an encounter, not the whole thing. And also going to Sabertooth as an execute talent or even baseline seems to be more impactful on the tail end. Additionally, Savage Roar came up a little bit today. Move to the bottom tree, maybe. Swap it places with Feral Frenzy. Add the Jagged Wounds effect. Who knows, right? Make it more impactful and keep it as some of the spinning plates, because Feral is all about spinning those plates. And if you remove all of them, then you're going to remove the heart and soul of what people fell in love with the Feral Druid in the first place, is spinning those plates. Feral Frenzy, again, like the previous note, it's a talent-defining rotational changing move. It was Ashvane's Frenzy, Ashvane's Frenzy from Legion, and many people really enjoyed it. It was a little bit awkward because of the weird range component, but potentially move it to the 15 talent row to compete with the other AoE option or the Council option in Lunar with Moonfire. And then we get to this one. I'm going to move my notes off screen right now. Get in game here. Because, if you haven't heard, there is a bit of a ick. And I understand, but survival instincts hurts to lose, but too strong to keep. The trade-off for Barkskin is really, really not there. Your only DR now is Barkskin, which is a 20% DR that lasts for 12 seconds. So it's more DR for longer, but less up front. Like Startle Instincts is a huge chunk of DR. SI right now is 2 charges with a 3-minute cooldown per charge, where it's a 50% damage reduction for 6 seconds. That is definitely not Barkskin. This lasts for twice as long at less than half the effectiveness. And normally, pulsing damage isn't what's going to be destroying you in these situations. It's the burst damage. It's this dot that's on me. Holy crap. What do? Well, you could have your combo points just used, so you've got a little bit of time, maybe, to get a Predatory Swiftness heal on yourself with your regrowth, because now you don't have to use it on Blood Talons specifically only. And you can put up your 20% DR, but you still might get completely blasted because you don't have that burst of DR. So there's something wrong there, yes. And the utility discussion. We just did Balance Druid yesterday. You can go check out that Rain TV if you like. It was my first one back to get this system, so it's a little bit more discombobulated potentially, but these are all just sort of like a one-take podcasty discussion, kind of catching up, get the conversation going. I read the comments, so it helps with the follow-up. So please, if you have anything else you want to add, especially for the kitty cat players out there, feel free to. But you added some more utility. I made a giant, let me bring my notes again. I made a giant like Feral Druid versus Balance Druid post. All of these bullet points. There are a couple of things that are weird. So like Moonkin, they've got Solar Beam, which is an AoE 8-second silence and interrupt on a 1-minute cooldown. They've got Baseline Typhoon, 20-yard knockback, plus a 6-second daze on the target's hit. They got Innervate for healers. They can cast Cyclone in Moonkin form. They can Battle Res in Moonkin form. Roar, which all druids have now, and Cyclone just came back, but Roar forces you into bear form. So that's a little bit weird for the Moonkin. But then they can Soothe in Moonkin, Hibernate in Moonkin, and Decurse in Moonkin, right? That's fine. The strange thing to comparing it to Feral Druid is you have your 20% debuff slow, right, on your infected wounds, which you can put on anyone. Just rake spam and you slow people. All slows are kind of weak now unless you're a tank, but they're still there. You do, of course, have Maim, which is your damage and combo point based stun, but obviously requires combo points, and it has a 20-second cooldown once used. You do have instant casts in Cat for Entangling Roots still, and of course regrowths due to your Predatory Swiftness, which you can use now on whatever you want in your small utility pool. I would say it should be improved upon, suggesting that it could be used on Battle Res was there. Also, Battle Res cannot be cast in Cat form. The Feline Adept passive also doesn't include Hibernate now. This works here, but you cannot Cyclone in Cat form. You have to Cyclone in Caster form, which is weird, but I guess I get Cyclone because it is a full-on CC. So popping out of Cat form, those GCDs are more impactful. But again, the Caster Druids don't have to, so why should you? It's things like that. It's those little Soothe works in Cats, Hibernate works in Cats, Stampeding Roar, you're still in Cat form. You still can Stampeding Roar just fine. It does not take you out of Cat form. So unlike the Balanced Druid, you're there, right? You're already in Kitty Cat. Any other form has to go Bear or be in Bear to begin with. If Balanced Druid goes Cat with like a Dash or Tiger Dash, they can also Roar and keeps them in Cat. And Decursing works in Cat form. So there's an argument there, right? And in Size Giant Post, the first thing he talks about is like all the utility, and there's more actually goes over in that one that Feral Druid still brings. But there is something missing. And Leader of the Pack came up in conversation. I'm not sure if that's the decision that needs to be made to bring Leader of the Pack back, because not every single class or spec needs a proprietary buff. Some are getting that, right? Wind Fury is coming back, right? So I don't want to look like a hypocrite because I'm getting back something that's proprietary, but we also don't know if it's going to stay. But also Blizzard seems to be going in the route that if everyone brings something, it doesn't matter what group you have, everyone has some neat tool again. Even if I still think in the Mythic rating scene, you've basically got 13 required spots, 2 being Warlocks. And then you've got the slush room of the other 6, 7, 8 roles where it can be anything, and you have everything that's proprietary to raids. But what do you do with Mythic Plus? If you're a normal or heroic raider, you've got plenty of spots. Bring whatever you want. And then what do you do in PvP when you've got 3v3s or you've got RBGs? Well, there's obviously a very specific amount of people you can bring to these content pools. So there'll be a meta and there'll be a hierarchy for sure. But Feral Druid has a lot. It's always been kind of denoted to be the just tunnel the boss. But even in Size Post and the feedback that you guys made on the forums, there's still more that's there, and a lot of the overarching has been damage numbers. And the damage numbers are obviously not set, and they're not going to be set for a while. But to go over some things that we found out today, and to make sure I have everything going up here, yeah, Roar for all cats, Cyclone's back, Rebirth. I also made a note of this. I didn't talk about it in the Balanced Druid video. Rebirth is still 100% HP for Druid Res. Wrath is baseline now, so you have that, I suppose. You have like a ranged ability on top of Moonfire being baseline, but that's kind of like an RP reason. What cat's gonna Wrath things? Maybe if you have to be out of range of something and you're farther than even Balance Affinity gives you, you have at least something else to hit. But ideally in those situations, you're throwing regrowths or something. I have Balance Affinity right now. Eclipse does proc. So that's a thing, I guess. That's one of the things that's kind of weird about the new Eclipse system. I don't know if that's a bug or not. Good thing that popped up right there. But that's probably not intentional because you're only supposed to have the abilities. But who knows? Maybe you are. Maybe you're like a bad Balanced Druid now from range with Balance Affinity. Guardian Affinity now has Incapacitating Roar because Iron Fur is baseline. And Resto Affinity has Ursol's Vortex as part of it. And Heart of the Wild is back. One of the only other major changes here. I did try to do some Heart of the Wild off healing in the dungeon video, which again, it's a Twitch highlight for this one. So it's in the channel guide. But I think I messed it up and actually hit Berserk instead, unfortunately. But bringing us into like a rotation stuff, if I'm looking at things that actually work, the current build that I placed up here, I switched to, and this could work with Savage Roar, I guess, or it could work with Incarnation. But the point on Incarnation real quick and Berserk is this cooldown is archaic. The plus 50 energy kind of does something, but also not really. The 40% energy reduction used to be 50, does something. And in Incarnation, you at least get the Rake and Shred as if you are stealth abilities. So you get the double damage Rakes and the 30% more damage and the double crit modifier Shreds. And then it lasts for 10 seconds longer than Berserk. So there's power points there, but crit is a huge part of Feral Druid, right? Crit's a big part of it, Primal Fury. I mean, you don't crit, it feels bad. Because A, you're like, it's either pooling or you're spending. And the crits really catapult the build forward to make sure you have the combo points available when you need to use your finishers. So why doesn't maybe Incarnation have what Celestial Alignment has? Why doesn't just Berserk have what Celestial Alignment has for balance now, which is a 15% critical strike modifier when you're in it? And if anything, Balanced Druid should have a haste modifier, not a crit modifier. Berserk should have a crit modifier because crit is huge. Or even a haste one, because energy and pooling is a big thing. Energy is related to how much haste you have. So there's just something that's missing from this ability, right? But anyway, I was doing stuff today in the dungeon, and there was fun moments, right? So there are things the Feral Frenzy Brutal Slash Sabertooth build I was doing when we did the single target bosses in the Necrotic Wake dungeon. I was doing the Blood Talons Primal Wrath Predator stuff for AoE, which, like, ideally, again, I did rather poorly, but I was starting to feel about the decisions you make there, and I'll go over some of those weird ones in a moment. But like when you come out of stealth like this, and again, no freaking crits. No freaking crits. See, I didn't crit enough, so I lost the Tiger's Fury window to clip the end of the pounced Rake. But like those moments, that triple rotation, the build spend with Feral Frenzy weaved in there, and the Brutal Slash window with Tiger's Fury, and once you get Sabertooth going, then it just smooths out on pure single target. Again, if Sabertooth was not this version, but in this context, it works, right? Sabertooth is fine in this context. It's when you get into Blood Talons it gets messy. But like that it feels powerful, right? You have that cat form, that moment. You pouncing your target, you get in there. Again, no crits, so it really feels bad, but these test characters are not great. So I should have bite and then hit Brutal Slash. It works, right? You have like this burst kind of window, and obviously even in that regard, even if you're single targeting and focusing, your Brutal Slash still going to cleave a little bit. And then you have like Lunar Inspiration, which again, right now with how Sabertooth and Predator work, Lunar Inspiration doesn't have a lot of competition because it's like the cleavy council kind of. We'll just take Predator here, and we'll go Blood Talons, we'll go Primal Wrath. Let me wait for that to come off cooldown. And again, like Moment of Clarity is just Fast Cat. Fast Cat and Sabertooth is pretty mindless for like single target or even like 2 target boss damage, because you can keep up Rip on 2 targets and then just rotate Ferocious Bites on 2 targets pretty easily. I don't even know if you can do 3, maybe, but that's when Lunar Inspiration comes into play. But Blood Talons is weird now. Is that Shred, Rake, Ferocious Bite. Abilities A, B, and C. They can be done in any order you want. So if you, this is an example, if you need to Ferocious Bite, you can Ferocious Bite, Shred, Rake, Blood Talons. Any order you put these 3 abilities in, no matter if it's at the end of a build to spend, or the beginning of a spend to build, or in the middle. If it's a refresh your Rake into your Ferocious Bite because Rake just crit, into a Shred, because you have to juggle, and it was argued that it's not like juggling plates for Blood Talons, but you basically have 6 things you're paying attention to. You have your 3 builders, which go in any order. You have the current combo points you have based on crits or not. You have the energy you currently have, and you have Tiger's Fury to not overcap your energy, but also to make sure you're hitting windows of time to get the right assortment of abilities in there to do, like say if I had right there, and then you would follow it up. You have to wait a little bit. You actually have a moment of time because your GCD is 1 second where it does allow you to weave one extra. And if you, of course, if you layer it, will that still work? Yeah, see? Because I did rake, shred, ferocious bite. That also works. I bet you that's really close to the 3 second window for whatever reason. Because it should only be 3 globals, but it still works for whatever reason. Like if I do shred, rake, bite, because it was the last shred. But there are some weird combinations where it still works. Now, obviously, this will work right there. Blood Talons. There's something there. The issue that came up about Blood Talons and Primal Wrath, people were talking about, oh, this looks really cool. It's neat. But to activate it to do like AoE, you do weird things like this, where you would just rake, shred, bite, Blood Talons, and then you build. Here, Tiger's Fury, build again. You'd be building, obviously, in AoE situations with... Oh, I didn't have it on my bars. Get in here. And then, there it is. You'd be building, because you'd be AoEing at the time, so you would obviously be hitting some swipes. Depending on damage numbers, Guilty and Zan were both saying that because, I mean, Thrash is real trash damage. It's just real bad. So I don't know where Thrash is going to fit in the whole thing. Thrash, to my knowledge in the past, was only something you hit with clear casting, with Moments of Clarity. So either with Moments or the base one, because it's just 50 energy and it's just not worth the damage. But obviously it's still going to scale with your mastery, and if you're AoEing, it's still going to be a thing, because then you can have your Primal Wrath AoE and everything else. If you want to, you pop out Sunfire and Moonkin for him, because if you have Balance Affinity, but who's going to do that? It makes it so if you're in... Let me dump these real quick. If you're in AoE combat and you need to refresh Blood Talons, then you need to essentially you target the main thing that you're going after. Right? If there's going to be a focused target there, you're going to hit whatever is the main target with that combo, and then go for it. But then you do it again, and then you're back to this. So I don't know if that's a bad playstyle, because it makes you weave both AoE into your single target. Because it's always going to be a priority target in AoE situations in Mythic Plus or in raids, whatnot, right? You're always going to have something you want to hit and then you want to cleave off of or AoE from. But that feels kind of like how Moonkin now have to Wrath to get the Starfire cleave. In a AoE situation, you hit Wraths, which are single target now and don't have any cleave component at all anymore. So there's just something there that I'm sure some players will enjoy, but others, it's just kind of like, it's something missing. And we didn't do really any testing with Savage Roar in any of this too, because Savage Roar obviously will give you energy regeneration rate and flat damage for a long period of time. So it's potentially that buffing yourself with Savage Roar from these single target combo points and then activating Blood Talons and then Primal Wrathing might be a play. That's an extra step, but it's an extra plate to juggle, I suppose, if you're all about that. And it's one of the only other ways you can feel like you're not necessarily snapshotting something, because Blood Talons, again, only snapshots rip only right now, which would be neat if it didn't. Imagine if you could snapshot just your next multitude of abilities. I don't know how they'd make it work, if they could make it work on every other ferocious bite, but that would placate the Sabertooth build again. Or if you could do your next Thrash, so Thrash wasn't as garbage on the AoE cleave. So you could look at things where you'd have your Blood Talons Thrash into the next rotation. Well, you'd Blood Talons of Primal Wrath and then Blood Talons of Thrash. Because you could do that with the old version. And taking that all away is definitely something that I've heard the feedback on, and hopefully that gets done in some way. But there's place to juggle here. Obviously, Moment of Clarity, like I said before, is just the single target, just cruise control build. Not a whole lot to pay attention to. Put up rip, bite, probably bite twice, put up rip again, repeat. It's there is something there, and I'll need some more feedback. And I read a bunch of stuff in the Dream Grove, like I said, in the 2 posts, but please comment down below if you have thoughts on this, because the utility additions have been added back in are something. But the survivability ones and the comparison to Balanced Druid makes it really tough by default to deal with the community perspective of a cat druid. And I get that. Guardian Affinity, Heart of the Wild off tank potential, or Resto Affinity, Heart of the Wild in 2s or 3s in Arena. It's going to be a thing, depending on it. You get in there and you burst all your cat stuff, get some bleeds out, and then all of a sudden, if your healer gets CC'd, you just pop out in caster form around some cover or something like that, throw out Heart of the Wild, and you throw out your big Wild Growth. You rejuvenate Swiftmend on someone, throw out regrowths. It's going to be a thing, right? It absolutely will be a thing again. And that's that's part of the utility thing that's kind of hard for Blizzard probably on their side to gauge, because Feral Druid in PvP, from what I've always expected, is really annoying. It's sticky, it does a ton of damage, right? And right now with Survival Instincts, even if you turn on the cat, you're just like, it's gonna SI into bear form, or SI into SI and then bear form, or whatever other way to do it, right? They're gonna have issues there depending on what class combination or what you're going against the Feral Druid with. And there's just some suggestions, some good feedback, and some possibilities that could really work. It's just not done cooking yet. It's not done baking. It's not done sauteing. It's not done. And with the very small amount of feedback we've gotten so far and very small iterations, Heart of the Wild and Blood Talons being really it, and the affinity slight changes, which that's the same thing for all druids. That's where the class is at right now. That's where the spec is at right now. And hopefully the early discussion and feedback gets to Halinka's team. And I will do my best, of course, to try to share it where I can, so the feedback gets in there internally. And we'll see what happens therein, because there's good stuff here. There is definitely some good stuff here. But there are still a lot of comments and questions people are having about the way this will work out, because both of the Druid DPS specs don't necessarily bring anything proprietary. So whatever one works better in settings, with more stuff to bring in the toolkit, will be where it ends. But that's the Feral Druid. And there's some good and some bad. But thank you very much for listening and watching. Check the links down below, of course, if you want the full VOD of the testing. We're going to talk all this stuff in greater length. The dungeon run videos down there. And, of course, the channel guide that'll have everything else coagulated for you. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if it's your first time here, or you forgot, or you're new, or you're returning, whatever it is. There's lots of videos coming. First and second passes. Dungeon videos where I do like a lot of just talking about the class overall and summarizing things. Torghast opened up today, so we'll have some Torghast testing in the future. And then we'll do some Covenant walkthroughs, signature abilities down the road, that kind of thing. Which, again, those could shore up Feral Druid's problems. Not Soulbinds, because they're pretty, like, flat. But maybe some of the Covenant stuff will, but we don't know until they're more concrete. But that is that. Thank you all for listening and watching and being here and hanging out and being on the live streams. And I will see you all in the next spec video coming up in the Shadowlands Alpha. Got Guardian Druid up next.